Right, you gits, it's time to catch up. Get in your Boomdakka Snazzwagon. It's time for Combat Patrol Carnage. Hello everyone, welcome back to Combat Patrol Carnage, and if you weren't already clued in from Bork, we're here to look at issue 59, the Boomdakka Snazzwagon. So yeah, we're catching up. This is going to be a kind of an easy video to do. We're going to be building it this video. Next video we're going to paint it, and then we get to have a little race against the Space Marine Chaplain on bike. So yeah, like I said, there's not a lot in the magazine. Build guide, paint guide, rules, and then playing. That's literally it. So without further ado, let's head to the table. But first off, we get to look at this awesome sprue quickly. So yeah, jam-packed full of stuff. Lovely chassis, front grille there. We've got pilots, drivers, gunners, engine block. Really fun looking kit. Can't wait to put this together. And we get this lovely large sized, I think 120 or 150 mil oval base. But yeah, really cool base for them to go on. But like I said, let's head over to the table. But before we do, don't forget to, of course, like this video if you're enjoying the content. Subscribe to the channel if you haven't done so already. And drop me a comment down below. Love hearing back from you guys, especially what you're doing in your hobby. Are you, like me, having to catch up? Or are you up to date? Let me know. And we'll have a good old natter in the comment section down below. Finally then, Combat Patrol Carnage is proudly sponsored by warbay.shop. Your one-stop supply for all your hobby needs. They stock everything you need, from getting started to expanding your force to getting those much essential Christmas gifts, available through warbay.shop and Disc Games. So check them out, there's a link in the video description as usual. They also stock Combat Patrol magazine, so if you're looking for some extras, do check them out. Right then, let's head over to the table and get the mech to build my wagon. Hello everyone, and welcome to our first foray into issue 59. So we've got our Boomdakka Snazzwagon to finally get going with. So he's got this lovely large base to go on in just a sec. But first we got to get him off this sprue and built. But it's such a jam-packed sprue it is. So we've got the sides of the vehicle, we've got the chassis here, we've got the front snowplow sort of thing. We've got the tyres, which look really cool, an Orky, big exhaust as you'd expect. We got the Go Faster fuel. We've got the engine itself. We got the big shooter there, and we've even got the mech special, which goes on top. And of course, we've got plenty of bottles, cans, and stuff that go to make Molotov cocktails. Yeah, really cool looking kit. There are a few errors in the build guide, but I'll address those as we get to them. Yeah, all in all, this guy is going to be a fun little build, I think. Right then, let's adjust the camera and we can dive into issue 59. So here we go into issue 59. So what do we have? The full contents is the build for the Boomdakka Snazzwagon, the paint for the Boomdakka Snazzwagon, the collect for the Boomdakka Snazzwagon, and the play known as Speed Freak. So yeah, if you haven't guessed it, Boomdakka Snazzwagon is probably one of the best names in Warhammer 40k and really fun to say. But so we'll be getting used to saying it quite a lot as we build this model, but here we go. So we're going to be building it in sub-assemblies. So we got sub-assembly 1 is going to be the little grot that sort of hangs out the side. Sub-assembly 2 is the front bumper snowplow, battering ram type thing with the little Mad Max chained grot to the front. Then we build the engine and the main chassis for the Boomdakka. So, main chassis, the front axle, or possibly rear axle, depending on the way it goes. Yeah, rear axle. Rear axle, foot plates, put the engine in, the front axle pieces as well. You've got the controls, and that's your finished section there. Glue on the sides, which are made up of a couple of components. So we've got these springy sections that go in to build up the framework. Glue the two sides in, glue the front railings into place, the back hand grips, suspension, the exhaust fuel lines, the actual exhausts themselves, tyres, the pilot or driver as we put as he should be. Then we glue in the grot controlled big shooter at the front, and that is our finished sub-assembly. Final sub-assembly then is the gunner on top. So we've got the top plate, the mech special, and the Molotov cocktail throwing orc there. And then we got the final assembly once you've painted. So you glue on your front, glue on your top, and push your little grot inside. Might be difficult to get in, but you want to put it in at a angle, then twist, and then twist again and get it into position. Don't know whether it'd be better to push it in from that side first or what, don't know, but there we have it. Right then, without further ado, let's go back and we'll start actually building. We don't need the base at the moment, so we'll leave that off to the side and we'll start our assembly. So the easy part then, let's get step 1 done. So we want parts 44 and 45. So 44 is there. And 45 is there. I'll get those cleaned up and we can glue them together. And, well, there we go. All cleaned up and easy build section now. Run a little bit of glue where the two halves meet. And simply push it into place. There we have our cheeky little gunner grot ready to fire out the back of the wagon. We'll put that off to one side and we'll start on sub-assembly 2. So 38, 49 and 50. So we'll get those cleaned up and glued down. So here we have our components. So we've got the back of our grot here, and we've got these little sort of diamond shape that go onto these teeth sections here. So we'll run a little bit of glue into each of those and along these bum cheeks. And then line that up, glue it down like so. Then tiny bit of glue on his neck, and we'll put in his head. There we go, sub-assembly 2 done. Now onto the big part where we actually work on the main wagon itself. So start off, we're going to build the engine. We want parts 1, 3, 4, 5 and 5. Right, get those components cleaned up and we can start our assembly. So we've got our components cleaned up. We'll start with parts 3 and 4. So we want to run glue all the way around the outside. Like so. Sandwich the two halves together. So we've got some guidance nubs here to help make sure things line up correctly. Just squeeze so we get a solid connection, wiping away any excess glue. We got, I'm guessing, the gear stick there with like a skull on, because of course it's 40k, everything has to have a skull on it. Then we can glue on our remaining accoutrements. So we got parts 5, which are the cylinder blocks on the engine. So we want these two round bits facing towards the back. So they're both the same piece, so they can go on either side. And then finally we've got the front of the engine block. Just want to put a bit of glue all over the place. Then we've got a tab and slot, and it needs to be that way around. Boom, engine block built. Right, turn the page, and now we need to start building our main chassis. So this is where we have our first error. I believe there's a couple more, but our first and most important one is this one. So part 16 is correct, it's the main base of the wagon. And part 52 is incorrect. What we actually need is part 13 here, because apparently orcs think 13 is the square root of 52, or something like that, I don't know. So we'll cut those two components out. We'll also cut out part 17 as well, the rear axle there. Right, get those cleaned up and put together. So all our components are cleaned up. Turn it upside down. We'll put a bit of glue just on there first, and then this slides into position like so. And then glue along here and here. And we've got two tabs on the top here. And a little bit of glue in this socket here. That goes on the end of there. And those tabs will slot into there. What you could do is probably put that into that first and then push it in that way. I'm not too sure. Might be a bit trickier. But there we go, that's that. On to next part. So we need each of the front axle pieces here, and we also need these back plates. So we'll cut those components out. There we go, we'll get these all cleaned up and ready to assemble. Right then, all of those components are nicely cleaned up and ready to attach. So we'll start with our back plates here. So run a little bit of glue around here and here. Then part 24 is the one with the tank. So it should sit down like that. And part 22 is just this plate piece here. And it should look like that. Then we want to glue our engine block into place. And that should sit behind that like so. And now we can put on our front axles. So 52 and 56 will go on this side. So a little bit of glue there and there, as well as on that hole just there. So we'll put (56) into 52 like so, and then that will go into there, and that will lock into there like so. We'll do the same on this side. Glue, 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 and there we go. So that one should look like that. And there we have our next stage done. So now we need our front consoles. So 57, 58 and number 2. And again, we'll get those cleaned up and attached. So there we go, we've got our components. So we need to glue parts 2 and 58 together. So I just want to put a little bit of rectangular glue just there. And this will sit, there's a tab just on the underside of there, which will go into the slot on the top of there. Turn it this way around, you can see better. There we go. And then these will glue onto these bars just here on the frame. So that way around, and they go in like so. The same here, we've got this little shelf that just fits into that section just there. Yeah, really coming along. Right, time to turn the page again, or slide the page over. And now we're going to start adding the sides of our wagon. So 59, 7 and 9, 54, 8 and 6. So we'll cut out one side at a time, I think, or at least keep them in separate piles. There we go. Right, we'll clean those up and then we'll come back and attach them to our wagon. Right, all cleaned up and ready for assembly. So we'll take part 59 and we'll assemble 7 and 9 together. So you've got a little nub and a ledge there, and you've got a little nub and a ledge there. Those two go together. And this fixes to there. No, that way around. And will attach to there. So glue, glue. And there we go. And we'll do the same on this side here then. So glue on part 6, attach part 8 to 6. And then glue and glue. And that goes in like so. Then we need to take this part and attach it like so. So follow the instruction guide and run glue around the contact points here. And then simply push together. Like so, and we'll do the same on this side. Yeah. We'll set that off to the side to dry while we cut out our next components. So we need 47, 48, 18 and 46. And we'll get these last little details here. So we've got the Ork symbol 21 to go on top of the engine, 37 and 36 as well. Right, there we go. We'll clean those up and get them ready to attach to our wagon. So there we go, all our components are cleaned up and we can begin assembly. So we'll start around the front here with our front grille. Glue on the ends of these posts, and then we got holes on the inside there that will line up. Like so. And I'll put a bit of pressure on that because it's not the most easier fit, but there we go. Next we want to put on glue along here and on top of there. We'll glue on part 47, our front suspension, to our left side. And we've got our back roll bar, and that will fit like that. So you could just leave that pegged in like that and run the glue along there. There we go. Going back to this side, we got glue along this bar and into these two little holes, and we'll glue in our exhaust, which is very spiky. And around this side we'll do the same, so glue here, here, here and here for part 48. And then finally here, here, and here for our exhaust. And then we got spotted glue just in the center there. We got our little Orky badge that goes on the engine like so. There we go. Right, last part for this stage is the engines. So 40 and 14, 39 and 15. Right then, we'll get these all cleaned up and we can assemble our main exhausts. There we go, all cleaned up. Now it's a simple matter of applying glue to our exhausts and sandwiching the two halves together. So we got guidance nubs again. They go into little bowls or divots, and that will help us get things in the correct position. Which, if this is an older kit, you'd probably end up having really badly lined up components, much like the old-fashioned smoke launchers on the Rhinos, which were a nightmare to line up straight. Several times I ended up having to sand down the sides just to get them to match. But anyway, there we go, that's that. Now to attach them, they got wedges here on the sides of the exhaust. And that is where we apply our glue. And then we got a wedge shape notch, there we go, words. That just sits in like so. Same on this side. So they sort of fan outwards a little bit. There we go, that's our exhaust and that's our current stage done. So next up, wheels, and we'll get our driver built as well. Right, there we go. So we've got our driver, and we've got two 11 and 12s, and two 19s and 20s to go together. So we'll get these cleaned up and we can attach them to the Boomdakka. So there we go. We have all our components cleaned up and ready to start gluing. So for the wheels, we want to run glue around the outside of each wheel, as well as on the inside here, where we've got this bar that will help line everything up. So that's one back wheel done. I'll do the same for the other one. And we've got our front wheels, so these are a little bit spiky. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to just glue around the inside there, and then these will line up like so. We'll try and get it so that we got the two flat pieces next to each other, so that they can form the base of our wagon when it glues to the base. I'll do the same on this side. Line them up. Let those fully set while we start work on our driver. So we got torso to the legs. There we got head, which is a little notch on the inside there. Help it sit in the correct position. So it should be looking sort of like that. Oh, I missed out part 31, the back of the chair. Hang on a sec. There we go. So this will go into two holes on the base, and then just a little spot there on his back. Then we got steering wheel, which needs glue there, and that'll attach to the hand or the arm. And then we want to glue this guy in first, so glue along the seat and his feet, and that'll fit into this section here and onto the pedals. There we go, he should be leaning out slightly like that. And then we've got the steering wheels attached, so glue in there, glue in his arm socket. And we simply lower that into place. I'll let that fully dry. So I'll attach the wheels next. Oh, you'll be joking. Really, so apparently I've totally not filmed the bit. So we just cut out parts 23, 51 and 27. So now we're going to clean them up and we're going to attach them to the Snazzwagon. So there you go, all cleaned up and ready to attach. So we'll glue on our Orc's arm. So it's hanging down like that. And we glue the two parts of the big shooter together. Wrong side, that side. And that fits onto this little bar at the front. And then we have stage 2 complete. So now on to stage 3 then, we've got our last Orc to build. So we got the top panel there, part 10, then we need 32, 33, 34, 35 for the Orc, 43, 30, 41, 42 for the gun. So we might as well just empty out the entirety of the frame, as these are the only components left on it. There we go, one completely empty sprue, so we can toss that to the side. We'll get this all cleaned up and assembled onto our Boomdakka. Right then, final assembly time. So let's build the mech special. So glue all the way around the outside of here and here. We'll glue on the underside. Then we've got the tri-barrel that sits on the front here. Then little ledge here gets a dab of glue, and we've got a battery pack to attach. And then that glue into place there. Now we'll glue the gunner together, so 2 halves of the body, pushing nice and firm, so we get a solid connection. There we got head and arm to glue on. So the head has a nice chunky post, so that goes in there like so, and the arm slots into the shoulder like so. You got a nice little swooping point for it to sit in. And then we've got to glue where exactly? Under there. So I want to wait for the arm to fully dry first, so let our Ork fully dry a sec. And so now we're ready to do the final attachment. So we got a little hole on the underside here, so you want to put a bit of glue just on the top there, and then this little triangle bit goes into that hole, and that is our final assembly done. So there we go, that's the Boomdakka Snazzwagon built. Now I'm hoping I might be able to spray, but it might be a tad on the cold side. So if not, I'm going to have to wait until the weather warms up, which might not be to the end of the week. But I'm going to get on and do some extra filming so that I'm ready to do a bunch of spraying at the same time. So it took me a little over an hour to do. I've been filming 44 minutes now, which won't equate to the actual video length. It's going to be cut down. There's going to be a lot sped up and removed, etc. But yeah, it took me about roughly an hour or so to build. This guy was a little tricky. The two halves of the body didn't want to quite sit flush. Maybe I didn't cut off quite enough plastic. I might use my spare kit and build up the gunner assembly again, and hope I do a better job that time. But yeah, all in all, really fun kit to build. No leftovers, which is really awesome. And yeah, just obviously the most funnest name to say ever. Boomdakka Snazzwagon, ready to paint. Well, will be once I've undercoated it. So there we go. All that's left me to do is to say thank you all very much for watching. Hope you enjoyed this video and found it helpful in building your Snazzwagon. And I will see you next time on more Combat Patrol Carnage. Goodbye.